Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ColoradoSports.TV coverage of the second day of the 2015 Mayday Mayhem tournament hosted by the Slaughterhouse Derby Girls. My name is Mark Bradford, also known as Brad Example.
And I am Screamin' Beamy.
We're going to get right into coverage of the first game here on track one as the Muddy River Rollers Lumbersmacks taking on the Happy Valley Derby Darlings Molly Morbids. Happy Valley skating in pink, in white, Muddy River. As you know, if you've watched us this tournament, we don't have a clear view of the jammer line, but we'll let you know who's jamming as soon as we know. And for the Lumbersmacks, the first jammer is number 47, Smashy. For Happy Valley, in the pink. I think that's 503 Hypnotic Therapy. Through and lead, number 47, Smashy for the Lumbersmacks.
Heavy resistance there.
Yes, 503 Hypnotic Therapy with the star for Happy Valley. Already we have penalties accruing, a track cut on Hypnotic Therapy, giving a power jam to Smashy in this first jam of the game. So we're going to capitalize by grabbing 5 points.
5 points up on the board for Happy Valley, for
Muddy River Rollers are out of Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada. Happy Valley Derby Darlings have come out from Utah County, Utah.
Smashy gets around again for another whole handful, 5 points.
Another 5 points up on the board for Muddy River as Smashy rounds the corners once again.
Around she goes on the power jam. There are 3 jammers in for Happy Valley. And everybody comes back in the track, but Smashy picks up another 5 points. Grand Slam once again for Smashy and the Lumbersmacks.
Hypnotic Therapy out of the penalty box through the pack, clear to score for Happy Valley, potentially limiting the further damage that, her momentum carries her back onto the track from being knocked into the outfield. Smashy with a track cut, losing lead. Time expires on the jam.
15 points for the Lumbersmacks on that first jam.
Actually, 2 final points collected on that last pass is going to take them to 17. And we're going to start with a power jam for Happy Valley with that penalty right at the very end of the jam.
So far, 27 minutes and 37 seconds left to play this first half.
So 27 and a half to go in our first period. Early lead for Muddy River.
And now it's Valkyrie Vixen, number 223, jamming for Happy Valley.
Valkyrie Vixen jamming for Happy Valley.
She's through, she's lead.
Of the last jam. So this could be an
And she'd have a full 30 seconds of power jam here.
on the board. Some big blocks from Breaker. As
The blockers open a path for her, but number 111, Knocker Walker, trying to hold her back at the top of the pack. Through for 5.
Penalty box is empty now. Everybody is on the track. Both jammers working their way through the pack.
I was going to try to consolidate the action, but I had no idea who was doing what.
Smashy clear to score for Muddy River. On advice from the sidelines, Valkyrie Vixen calling it off with 4 points. So Molly Morbids of Happy Valley Derby Darlings on the board with 9 points after 2 jams. Both these teams are playing their 3rd game of the weekend. Yesterday, Muddy River went 2-0, whereas Happy Valley was a little less successful. They went 0-2.
As these jammers really good at getting super low, making it almost impossible for us to tell who they are. That is going to be
penalty box empty until now. A forearm penalty for number 8, Tootsie Valentino, on her way through the pack with the star for Muddy River, giving a second consecutive power jam to Happy Valley.
Yep, that's 00, the Juker for Happy Valley.
She was in a, she had just...
Oh, and unfortunately, we are calling the jam due to injury. Number 45, Vernon Rubber for Muddy River seems to be having difficulty breathing. So our medical crew on the scene.
We like it best when they don't have to work. But when they do, we're glad they're here.
Yeah, they're the only people in the building we would like to remain bored through the entire weekend.
That's right.
So we don't know how long we'll be paused here. Do a little bit of recap. Actually, this is probably a good time to introduce the skaters for the teams. Skating this morning for the Happy Valley Derby Darlings, we got number 00, the Juker, number 1057, Thrasher, number 11, Insanity, number 12, Cookie, number 19, Breaker, number 223, Valkyrie Vixen, number 4, Pain in the Nicky, number 321, Venus Von Jet, number 428, Olivia Wildchild, number 503, Hypnotic Therapy, number 515, Roper, number 521, Gypsy Wiper Out, number 73, Flower Bomb, and number 84, Wham Bam Julianne. Vernon Rubber now back up under her own power, returning to her bench.
A quick run through for the Muddy River Rollers Lumbersmacks. 0, Box Blocker. 1111 is Knocker Walker. 1755, Velvet Stalker. 25, Sugar Snaps. 33, Sienna Sempra. 42, Godly. 45, Burnin' Rubber. 47, Smashy. Number 50 is Sniperess. 619, Billy the Shiv. Number 7 is Kate Sham Rocker. And number 8, Tootsie Valentino.
Back into play now on the fourth jam of the game.
It's a power jam for Happy Valley.
Score remained at 17-9 during that timeout.
Thrasher is the jammer for Happy Valley. She is through the pack and is our lead jammer. Still on a power jam.
So Tootsie Valentino retaining the jammer star for Muddy River. Now back on the track trying to get through the pack. Tight pack going into turn number 2. Tootsie Valentino is out and clear to score. Bit of a rough takeout on the outside lane. Oh!
1 to go, and
Thrasher launched into the outfield. Oh.
That was more than just a love tap.
She calls it off. She earns 5 points, but Tootsie Valentino is able to sneak into the pack for 2.
So that brings Molly Morbids up to 14. Lumbersmacks have 19.
So only a 5-point game, which is a close game after 4 jams. If you look at the numbers, both the potential rankings and how the teams performed yesterday, you might expect that the Muddy River Rollers have a bit of an edge in this game. So we'll see if Happy Valley is able to keep it close, or in their best case scenario, pull out a win. Number 50, Sniperess on the track for the first time. We did see her jam a good bit yesterday, so she's through, lead jammer for Muddy River. Number 503, Hypnotic Therapy, back on the line for Happy Valley.
Sniperess re-approaching the stretch. Happy Valley wall up front there.
Sniperess gets into the pack, grabs 2 points, calls it off since Hypnotic Therapy had broken out of the pack. Content to take 2 points.
And a Muddy River apprentice just back in April 2013 just got their full membership last October.
Down to 23.5 on the first period clock. 21-14 advantage. The Lumbersmacks from Muddy River. Number 47, Smashy, with the star for Muddy River, having trouble at the with a 3-wall at the top of the pack. That gives number 223, Valkyrie Vixen, time to sneak through for lead for Happy Valley.
Smashy getting recycled to the back of the pack by number 19, Breaker, for Happy Valley.
An opportunity here for the Longhorns, put some points up on the board.
Smashy had to go back behind turn number 1, and 5 points for Valkyrie Vixen as she sails through that pack. Now only a 2-point game. Oh, and this is their opportunity.
Yes, so Smashy with the back block ends up in the penalty box. Valkyrie Vixen is in a power jam.
Each of these teams played 2 games yesterday, so that's going to be a little bit fatiguing, especially up here in Colorado's altitude. Both, if anything, Happy Valley will have an advantage there. Utah also has a little bit of altitude on them.
Start pushing against them.
First game of the day here on Saturday, and therefore the first game of the day for each of them.
Yes, I can definitely feel the altitude here. I thought I was okay when I came. Now this morning, I can feel it.
It can sneak up on you.
I guess so.
Power Jam extended into the next jam as 5 more points were collected by Valkyrie Vixen.
Muddy River has their jammer and a blocker in the penalty box.
So now a lead change, 3-point lead for Happy Valley.
And that's going to be the Juker. Now she was out earlier.
Smashy starting in the penalty box. Number 00, the Juker on the track through the pack. Lead jammer for Happy Valley.
Juker, she just graduated from college and flew out.
Looks like Smashy is out of the penalty box and ready to make some points.
She snuck through on the inside line. The Juker notices this and calls it off, but she hadn't yet passed any opponents in the pack, so that's going to be a 0-0 jam.
Lots and lots of work, no points.
However, still a 3-point lead for the Molly Morbids from Utah County, Utah. Lumbersmacks, 21 points. Happy Valley, 24.
And this be right back.
Happy Valley has 1 blocker in the penalty box right now.
And that is Thrasher jamming again for Happy Valley.
Number 8, Tootsie Valentino jamming for Muddy River.
Number 10, 57, Thrasher with a star for Happy Valley in pink.
Both jammers still making their initial pass through the pack.
I was able to see Muddy River play yesterday, and the 3 jammers they fielded so far this game, Tootsie Valentino, Smashy, and Sniperess, were the 3 that they relied on most yesterday as well. Tootsie Valentino through and lead.
Thrasher still working her way through that wall of white.
40 seconds into that jam. A multiplayer block is going to send someone.
Multiplayer block.
Yeah, that is Morbid.
It's for the pivot from Happy Valley.
Thrasher still getting just control.
5 for Tootsie Valentino as she gets through the pack. Only about 45 seconds remaining on the jam clock.
Both jammers working their way right through the middle. Goes number 8, Tootsie Valentino. She picks up another 5 points for Muddy River.
Thrasher having trouble with all 4 of the blockers for Muddy River out there in a braced configuration.
And in the meantime, Tootsie Valentino takes the outside and grabs 5 more points. Looks like Cookie from Happy Valley and Kate Shamrocker.
I saw that truck committed just now by Tootsie Valentino, one of the Happy Valley blockers. Very astute, sees her go out of bounds to the inside, drifts back, and so when Tootsie comes back inbounds, she uses this as a track cut. Timeout called, an official review, in fact, being called by Muddy River. I wonder if it's to review that track cut call.
36-24 is our score. Lumbersmacks ahead of Molly Morbids, but it's only 12 points. And we're about halfway through this first half.
18 minutes and 28 seconds on the stopped period clock. This the second large jam of the game. We started off with a 17-point jam. This was a 15-point jam. Intervening have mostly been smaller. But that does put the Muddy River Rollers back on top by 12. Yesterday, as I mentioned, both teams played, and Muddy River went 2-0, Happy Valley 0-2. The predicted rankings, Muddy River's not yet ranked. However, the unofficial Flat Track Stats site predicts a debut ranking of number 99 in the Women's Flat Track Derby Association, and in fact, yesterday they defeated the current number 99, Rage City from Anchorage, Alaska. Happy Valley is currently ranked number 152. So a 50-point differential in ranking spots can... It's interesting because yesterday I saw one game between two teams that were separated by 70 ranking points, and it was a really tight game. And then I've seen games between teams that were separated by only 20 or so ranking points, and it's very one-sided.
Yeah.
So this early in the game, after only 8 jams, it's difficult to tell which kind of game this will be.
Absolutely.
This is the second day of Mayday Mayhem for 2015. It's a 3-day tournament. Yesterday and the first half of today for the Women's Flat Track Derby Association teams that are here. We have 14 of them divided into 2 pools of 7. And those pools are playing among each other to determine seeding into an elimination bracket that will begin this afternoon, Mountain Time. That elimination bracket will result in a single winner of the tournament from the WFTDA teams. We have 3 Men's Roller Derby Association teams who are here today. They will play round robin amongst each other. And then tomorrow we've got 4 teams from the Junior Roller Derby Association who will play each other in 2 games. We are being brought to you by ColoradoSports.TV. They have a donation button up on their page. If you would like to help defray the costs of this broadcast for them, any donation would be most welcome.
Please and thank you. Still waiting on the official review.
We see all of the team representatives in the center of the track talking with the officials. And I think we're about to find out what was going on.
$18:28 left to play. We are into Jam 9 of the Lumbersmacks and the Molly Morbid.
All right, Lumbersmacks were challenging the...
Okay, so as I suspected, it was a challenge to the track cutting call. But the cut stands, and looks like both of the jammers had been penalized at the end of that jam, so they're both coming in from the penalty box.
And that would be Thrasher for Happy Valley and Tootsie Valentino for Muddy River. Tootsie Valentino is now our lead jammer.
Thrasher passes the star to her pivot.
And that is a star pass. Now pivot, Payne in the Nicky getting...
Pivot was number 4, Payne in the Nicky.
Number 2 worked out this time. That was it was the original star pass that got the Happy Valley.
2 points collected, no, 3 points collected by Tootsie Valentino, who calls it off. That should take us to 39-24. 17 and a half to go in the first period. We'll have about a 10-minute halftime and then bring you 30 more minutes of roller derby.
Yay!
Our score currently sitting at 36-4. Muddy River, Lumbersmacks, 24 for Happy Valley. Just over 17 minutes left to play in this first half.
And that is Hypnotic Therapy out there with the dreadlocks representing for Happy Valley.
Number 503, Hypnotic Therapy with the star for Happy Valley in the pink.
And Sniperus is jamming for Muddy River.
Both jammers are in the pack. Pack is splitting up with the pink blockers at the front, white blockers at the back. First one through is Sniper's lead jammer for Muddy River. Hypnotic Therapy breaks out as well.
Not too far behind her, and the pack is really speeding up now.
Sniper's calls it off within the pack, picks up 3 of the 4 possible points.
I think that's the fastest I've seen the pack go so far today.
That's enough to take the score to a nice happy palindrome, 42-24 with 16 minutes to play in our first period.
Last year's Mayday Mayhem.
How nice of them to do that for us.
So feel free to use that, not trademarked. But they have been playing some very...
I'm sure it was their plan all along.
I'll bet.
Number 47, Smashy with the star for Muddy River. Number 223, Valkyrie Vixen for Happy Valley.
And that is Valkyrie Vixen.
Smashy for Muddy River is our lead jammer. Everybody out of the penalty box now.
Happy Valley trying to trap one of the Muddy River blockers at the back of the pack, but it also means that they were back in range for Smashy to pick up some points on them quickly as she got into the pack. Smashy calls it off. A third consecutive three-point jam for Muddy River. So we often see a team that's trying to make a comeback content to do nickel and diming. Just grab a couple points here, 4 points here, 3 points here, just to chip away at the lead. We're now seeing that technique being used by the Lumbersmacks to build up a lead, up to 21 points on differential on the board now, 45-24, halfway through our first period.
Jamming this time around is number 8, Tootsie Valentino for Muddy River, and 00, the Juker for Happy Valley. Juker getting recycled back to the back of the pack, having a tough time getting through that wall of white. Our lead jammer is from Muddy River. That's Tootsie Valentino.
I wonder if the Juker is supposed to be a reference to the Joker.
That totally could be. Looks like the Juker found her way through the pack. She's ready to make some points. Oh, and the back block by Tootsie Valentino. So that means the Juker is out there by herself on a power jam, ready to make some points.
She has the rest of the period of the jam time to do so, which is just about half of it now. 1 minute to go in this jam.
Finds her way past box blocker, and she picks up all 5 points for the Juker.
A pack advantage as well right now for Happy Valley.
2 blockers, now 3, but through the inside goes the Juker, picking up a whole nother handful.
Tootsie Valentino back out of the penalty box through the pack. That was a scoring pass. She collects 4. Neither jammer can call off the jam.
That's a fast 4 points for Tootsie Valentino.
Followed by 4 for the Juker.
Just as we talk about only getting 3 at a time.
It's the announcer's jinx. As soon as you mention that the penalty box is empty, the penalty box will fill up.
Tootsie Valentino gets knocked to the outside, recycled all the way back. In the meantime, the Juker sneaks through the inside, grabs 5 more points, and that's the end of the jam.
4 final points for Tootsie Valentino, total of 8 on the jam, but that is eclipsed by the 19 picked up by the Juker, dropping that lead to only 10 points, 53-43, with 12 and a half to go in our first period. So I was saying before, you cannot predict what kind of a game it will be, and I'm happy to say that Happy Valley is determined to make a game out of this one.
Yes. Looks like we've got number 45.
It's Vernon Rubber's first time with the Star. We saw her jam a little bit yesterday. She's the one who unfortunately went down earlier. It's good to see that she's back in shape to jam.
3-2-1 is jamming for Happy Valley. That's Venus Von Jett. That's her first time jamming this morning.
She's through the pack and cleared a score, which will limit the number of points that Vernon Rubber can pick up.
2 blockers for Muddy River head to the penalty box.
So Vernon Rubber calls it with 3. A lucky 13-point lead for Muddy River after the 13th jam of the game.
Huh.
And even though there have been some penalty troubles for Lumbersmacks, their 2 walls are very effective.
So once again, a 4-2 pack advantage for the Happy Valley Derby Darlings in pink. And they're going to capitalize. Watch those skates. She keeps them in bounds. Number 503, Hypnotic Therapy, lead jammer for Happy Valley.
Boy, we've got another blocker going to the box.
That's
Muddy River.
Muddy River's pivot, and so temporarily they have only 1 blocker on the track.
Nypris was the jammer for Muddy River.
Hypnotic Therapy making short work of the pack, grabs all 4 points, calls it off. Very smart play by Happy Valley, dropping the lead to 9 points. Do stay tuned today. We have an entire day of roller derby coming to you on 2 tracks. Last games of the day start at 7 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time.
Valkyrie Vixen jamming for the Happy Valley Derby Darlings.
Tootsie Valentino, number 8 with the star for Muddy River, is the first one through lead jammer. But Valkyrie Vixen through as well.
Only 2 blockers out there for Muddy River at the moment.
2 apiece, in fact.
Oh, yes.
Oh, interesting. 4 points for Tootsie Valentino. She waits a little too long to call it off, and Valkyrie Vixen sneaks 3 points for Happy Valley. 60 to 50 on the board. 10-point lead for the Lumbersmacks with under 10 minutes to go in the first period. This is a great way to start the day.
Very early, so you can see that Happy Valley is really bringing.
Still 2-2 in terms of blockers, but a whole bunch of blockers standing in the penalty box ready to re-enter the action. Smashy, number 47 for Muddy River, is the first jammer through.
Out there for Happy Valley is Thrasher.
Thrasher, number 1057 with the star for Happy Valley. It's been several jams since she was out there with the star.
Boy, I tell you what, the Lumbersmacks having a tough time with penalties. We've already got 2 blockers in the penalty box.
Smashy grabbed 5 points on her first pass and a single additional pass. She wants 2, she doesn't get them. 66 to 50, 8.5 to go in the first period. We've already seen jams in this game larger than the 16-point differential that we have right now, but not many of them. The majority have been in the single-digit range.
You don't realize you have to get up on the bridge or let go of your teammate. Because again, now just out there with just 2 blockers, and it is going to be the Juker, recent college graduate.
Sniperess jamming for Muddy River.
The Juker, number 00. With a star for Happy Valley. And again, Muddy River just losing blockers to the penalty box like crazy. That's going to limit the damage that Snipers can do because the Juker already cleared a score. Snipers calls it. Did she get past all 4 blockers? She did.
Indeed, 4 points up on the board in Jam 17, 7.5 minutes left to play. Lumbersmacks with a 20-point lead now.
So this weekend is the first time that Muddy River has played any of the other teams here at Mayday Mayhem. Happy Valley has previously played against 5 other teams that are here. However, their second ever sanctioned game was played at the Mayday Mayhem in 2014, so they're still a relatively new team to the Women's Flat Track Derby Association.
And March against Rock Coast was their first sanctioned game.
Tootsie Valentino jamming for Muddy River.
And number 503, Hypnotic Therapy for Happy Valley.
Yeah, absolutely. Muddy River and Winnipeg have just been controlling. I mean, they have out just swinging.
Hypnotic Therapy is out, but due to no pass, no penalty, she's not lead. She legally passed one of her opponents while that opponent was out of play. There's no penalty for that, but you also don't get credit that counts for either points or for lead. Tootsie Valentino picking up lead as she gets out. She could call it now, but it looks like she wants to try and get some points first.
Muddy River blockers doing a very good job of keeping Hypnotic Therapy.
But a multiplayer blade on Kate Shamrocker is going to put her in the penalty box. When we get into halftime, I'm going to see if I can sneak a peek at the penalty board. 5 points collected by Hypnotic Therapy. 4 for Tootsie Valentino. And we're going to have a total of 8 to 5 on the jam. Still an advantage for the Lumbersmacks.
5:41 to go. Lumbersmacks 78. Molly Morbids 55.
Valkyrie Vixen, number 223 for Happy Valley.
Muddy River still has a blocker in the penalty box.
Muddy River has really been dominating the lead statistics. They've had 2/3 of the lead jammer calls in the game. And despite that, for the Wally Morbids to have kept it this close is some pretty good work. And as I say that, Valkyrie Vixen picks up lead for Happy Valley.
Smashy is jamming for Muddy River. Still trying to get through her initial pass. Knocked out by Cookie from Happy Valley.
5 points for Vixen on her trip through the pack.
And with that lead jam, that is going to be 5 more points for Happy Valley. And Valkyrie Vixen is off.
Smashy makes it out now.
With Lumberjacks being flat shot Stacy.
Lumbersmacks still with a 1 blocker deficit on the track. 3 more for Valkyrie Vixen, as she calls it.
Every point, they are just on cloud 9 for. Yeah, absolutely.
Knocking 8 points off of the Lumbersmacks lead. Now a 15-point differential, 78-63, with 4 minutes to go in our first period.
That's right, an 8-point jam, without being in a power jam situation. A very big win there for Happy Valley. Snipers taking the jam start this time.
Snipers runs up the outside line to grab lead for Muddy River.
Taking no time finding that hole, and away she goes. Looks like number 19, a breaker for Happy Valley, jamming for her first time in the game.
Actually, she is the pivot and accepted a star pass.
Gotcha.
Still expecting the Happy Valley jammer to make her initial pass.
Did you see who was the first jammer for Happy Valley?
Power jam situation.
Another 5 points on the board for the Snipers. Brittany Rubber.
5 points for Sniperus. Oh, now we see that Breaker does no longer has the jammer cap.
Somebody must be hiding it in their pocket.
Well, there may have been an issue with the star pass. 5 points, and the Lumbersmacks taking advantage of this opportunity. As Sniperus making multiple 5-point passes. So Thrasher is now back onto the track for Happy Valley. So it looks like the jammer cap wound up on the floor. Thrasher does not have it. Breaker does in her hand.
Aha. So I was right. They were hiding it.
Well, that's become an increasingly common technique in the Women's Flat Track Derby Association. The jam will remove the cap, but not necessarily immediately pass it to the pivot, which she's allowed to do.
And now a cut track being called.
Now a track cut called on Breaker, who sits in the penalty box with the star. She will be the next jammer for Happy Valley. A 24-point jam for the Lumbersmacks, taking them into triple digits. This is the highest scoring jam of the game so far. 102-63, and things are looking a little more grim for Happy Valley as we get close to the end of the first period. Minute and a half on the clock.
Lumbersmacks in a power jam.
Just talking about it, but they can go the full 2 minutes.
It's number 8, Tootsie Valentino.
Through and lead.
Steady, has not even moved past the jam line with this one.
Tootsie Valentino working her way through the pink ladies.
All 4 Happy Valley blockers on the track.
5 more points for Tootsie Valentino.
Breaker now back on the track for Happy Valley. 1 blocker to beat.
Still 1 more up there in front of her. Big hit there. That's
Number 111, Knocker Walker, giving Breaker a little problem there. Knocks her out to the outside and recycles her back to the back of the pack.
Tootsie calls it 3 additional points for a total of 8 on that jam.
And no points for Happy Valley.
Now, it looks like there were exactly 30 seconds on the period clock when that jam ended, which should imply that they'll, if there were exactly 30, then they would start the next jam at 0. So I think they probably won't run another jam unless somebody calls timeout. And I'm correct. So that wound up being the final jam of the first period. So, what have we seen so far in this game, Screamin' Mimi?
Well, the thing that I noticed probably the most were lots of the Lumbersmacks in the penalty box.
Yes, indeed. We saw numerous times when they were down to 2 blockers, and sometimes with those blockers in the queue for penalties themselves.
Also, Happy Valley Jammers were cutting away there for a while, 3 at a time, 3 points at a time per jam. There had a couple that were more than that, significantly more than that. But, you know, we're doing okay. Lumbersmacks up 110, Molly Morbids 63 at halftime.
Going into this game, based on their performance yesterday, I really expected that Muddy River would dominate, and I would love to see a game between Muddy River and then the Winnipeg Roller Derby League, the other team here from Canada. They were doing extremely well yesterday also. And so I expected a pretty dominant performance from Muddy River, but Happy Valley was not to be denied. They have kept it much closer than I expected, even taking a lead for a couple of jams, albeit only by 3 points, but keeping the score differential, taking it back down into single digits. Only in the last 2 jams, I would say, has Muddy River really put some daylight between themselves and Happy Valley. I am very eager to see what adjustments the Molly Morbids make at halftime to try and hang on to that closeness, that competitiveness in the second period.
Yep. Looks like Happy Valley, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jammers for Happy Valley, and Muddy River used 1, 2, 3, 4.
And one of those only once. So really relying on that 3-jammer rotation of Tootsie Valentino, Snipers, and Smashy. Well, thank you once again for tuning in to ColoradoSports.TV. Remember, the donate button will halftime is a great time to click that button and toss a few dollars in the kitty. We will be back in around 6 minutes for the second period of the game. My name is Mark Bradford, also known as Brad Example.
And I am Screamin' Mimi.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ColoradoSports.TV coverage of the 2015 Mayday Mayhem Tournament. Hosted by the Slaughterhouse Derby Girls out of Greeley, Colorado. We are at the Budweiser Event Center in Loveland, Colorado. My name is Brad Example, a.k.a. Mark Bradford.
And I'm Screamin' Mimi.
This is the second day of the 3-day tournament, brought to you by ColoradoSports.TV. So a little bit, we're at halftime of the game between the Happy Valley Derby Darlings and the Muddy River Rollers out of New Brunswick, Canada. Mimi was saying just before halftime that she thought that the penalty count was pretty high on Muddy Riverside. I verified that at halftime. They've picked up 22 penalties in the first period compared to 10 for Happy Valley. However, no single skater has more than 3 trips to the box, so they're not quite in danger yet. It's on your 7th trip to the box that you have fouled out of the game.
Ready to start period 2, Lumbersmacks against the Molly Morbids.
So there's a 47-point differential right now, but only 2 jams ago, that was only 15. So what we're very interested to see is what adjustments Happy Valley might have made at halftime to see if they can get this lead back down from Muddy River. Based on paper and their mutual performances against the Rage City Roller Girls from Anchorage, Alaska yesterday, we expected a pretty dominant performance out of Muddy River, but we haven't seen that.
And as you say that, they send number 45, Burnin' Rubber, to the penalty box. Number 8, Tootsie Valentino is our lead jammer for Muddy River to start off the second half.
And she has a power jam as number 1050. I think that's number 1057 Thrasher. Let me see.
Started the second half the way they ended the first half with a power jam.
No, that's number 5 with 03, Hypnotic Therapy.
Tootsie Valentino gets through the pack for 5 points.
So 5 power points, Hypnotic Therapy in the penalty box.
Happy Valley trying to create that defensive ball.
Happy Valley slowing down Tootsie Valentino on that trip through the pack.
Finally able to slow the Lumbersmacks down a little bit with some walling up and cycling back.
1 to beat, and she's got 5 more points. That's Tootsie Valentino for Muddy River.
Number 428, Olivia Wildchild, teamed up another 521 Gypsy Wipeout, trying to hang on at the top of the pack there. Hypnotic Therapy through the pack now, able to score for Happy Valley.
Able to get through.
Tootsie Valentino calls off the jam. She did pick up 4 more points before she called off the jam. Hypnotic Therapy, no points on that jam.
So 14 on the jam takes the Lumbersmacks to 124. It's looking a little bit worse now for Happy Valley.
The Lumbersmacks are really widening out their lead, and we've just started the second half.
Plenty of time to go, though. I have seen teams come back from nearly a 100-point deficit. Not often.
Well, I tell you what, if the Lumbersmacks find their way to the penalty box, we're going to have some trouble at the end.
Number 50, Snipress with the star for the Lumbersmacks, through and lead. Number 223 for the Molly Morbids, Valkyrie Vixen.
Burton Rivers, box blocker headed off to the penalty box for Muddy River.
Happy Valley not able to contain Snipress. She does get the jammer lap point for a 5-point pass, but now Hypnotic Therapy, Valkyrie Vixen clear to score for Happy Valley.
Fast pack going on, so she says, I'm done. Calls off the jam.
No further points.
Nope, the Lumbersmacks pick up 5 points on that jam, and no points for the Molly Morbids.
I think one point in that jam, if I'm not mistaken now,
26 and a half in the game.
129 to 63.
2 30-minute periods of play. If you're new to roller derby, those periods are broken down into scoring sessions called jams. At the start of each jam, 5 skaters from each team start off on the track, one behind the rest of them, wearing a star on her helmet. She's the jammer. She scores points. She has to get through the pack once to earn the right to score, as Smashy is about to do for Muddy River, however, quickly followed by number 00, the Juker for Happy Valley. Once you have earned that right to score, you pick up points for each of your opponents you pass in the pack. First jammer out, except in strange circumstances, I should say unusual circumstances, is declared lead jammer and can call off the jam by tapping her hips. That prevents her opponent from scoring any further points. If that doesn't happen, it's a 2-minute jam. 30 seconds to reset. We do it all over again. That's what we're doing right now. It's a very tight pack as the jammers are jockeying for position. Tootsie Valentino once again with the star for Muddy River.
And Thrasher is jamming for Happy Valley. Thrasher gets knocked to the inside, recycled back by box blocker.
Tootsie Valentino through and lead. She's the hardest working jammer so far today. This is her 10th jam. It's the 6th time out for Thrasher.
Box blocker for Muddy River ends up in the penalty box. Go!
Thrasher breaks out. Smart play from the Happy Valley blockers, who are speeding up the pack to make life more difficult for Tootsie Valentino. They are all at the top of the pack. Number 84 for Happy Valley,
Wham Bam
Julianne, was the rearmost blocker. Tootsie Valentino now putting on a burst of speed, trying to pass some of those blockers. She does pass all 4 and call it off, but she had to work for it.
Yes, that was a fast pack all the way through.
133 to 63, around 70-point lead for the Lumbersmacks. That lead has only been growing this period as Happy Valley is yet to score in period number 2. 24 minutes to go. Geared up for the 5th jam of the period.
Ooh, wasting absolutely no time. That is Sniperess. That is the lead jammer for Muddy River.
She saw a hole on the outside. She took it. Number 503, Hypnotic Therapy, has the star for Happy Valley.
That's the second time we've seen the Lumbersmacks.
Both jammers are through, ready for some points, and there goes Sniperess with 4. And she calls off the jam.
Sniperess calling it off.
So even if you just get 4 unanswered points per jam, you're going to win the game.
Right.
It's like in football. If you always get a first down, you'll win the game.
Right.
So you don't have to be flashy. You don't have to score 30 points per jam. If you're consistent and are able to hold on to the other team's jammer, even just long enough to get your own out. You don't have to trap her forever. Now, that applies to both sides of the equation. So if the Happy Valley pack is able to figure that out, they still have a chance to come back here. Number 47, Smashy, with the star for Muddy River, taking on number 00, the Juker.
Bodies hitting the floor.
The Juker out and lead and in a power jam.
Oh, boy.
A low block called on Smashy.
And the blocker for Muddy River also goes to the penalty box. Now we've got 3 blockers for Muddy River. And the Juker gets past everybody, so she gets 5 points for Happy Valley.
She has 30 seconds unopposed on the track.
1 blocker goes to the penalty box for Happy Valley. And so does the pivot. Boy.
Number 428, Olivia Wildchild, is the pivot. The Juker calling it off with 3 additional points. She wants to extend the power play into the next jam.
So now it's 137 to 71 in favor of the Lumbersmacks.
Smashy retaining the star in the penalty box for the Lumbersmacks. Let's see if I can identify that jammer way over there. I cannot.
Power start here for Happy Valley as Smashy started.
Might be 503 Hypnotic Therapy. No, it's 223. Valkyrie Vixen. Smashy rapidly through the pack upon her re-entry from the penalty box.
Now, picking up speed, Valkyrie Vixen pushing her teammates. Get moving, get away.
Valkyrie Vixen taking no chances, calling it off. Not quite quickly enough as 3 points collected by Smashy.
That's 3 points to Muddy River Lumbersmacks, bringing them up to 140.
Well, a skating out of bounds penalty assessed to Valkyrie Vixen. She picked up 2 points. So 140 to 73 with just under 21 minutes to go, but now we have a power jam for Happy Valley, who give their star to Tootsie Valentino. Through and lead and in a power jam.
2 more blockers, 1 for each team sent to the penalty box. Goodness.
Well, when you have a 3-day tournament like this, fatigue can become a factor, especially if you're playing multiple games per day, as we have been.
And it's early on a Saturday morning.
That too. Although when I got up this morning, my teenager was already awake rather than sleeping in like a normal teenage boy.
Oh.
Go figure. He didn't get that from my side of the family.
I have 3 teenage boys at my house. I bet they're still sleeping.
Well, that is very interesting. Valkyrie Vixen through the pack and clear to score. Tootsie Valentino calling it off from the floor. It took a little while for the referees to respond, and I'm wondering if that was because she was tapping her hips with one hand.
Oh. And breaking her fall with the other.
Yes. End result, though, 10-point jam for Tootsie Valentino. 150 to 73 on the scoreboard.
Oh.
What in the world was that?
Cut track by Insanity for Happy Valley.
That's her first time with the star, but it results in a power jam for lead jammer Sniperess from Muddy River. So it was quite the shout going up from the Muddy River bench when that happened.
5 points, the whole handful for Sniperess.
It was actually number 321, Venus Von Jet. Yeah.
Venus Von Jet now back out on the track.
You didn't lie. You didn't lie.
Not intentionally.
You wouldn't do that.
Let's do it this way.
One more to beat. Oh, and she stays in bounds with 1 foot. She gets all 5 points. That's Sniperess for Muddy River.
Quite a balancing act, actually.
Yes, it was.
So the power jam is over, but still the advantage with Muddy River. Venus through, clear to score. Track cut on Sniperess. And now slightly less pleased noises coming from the Muddy River bench.
5 points for Venus Von Jet.
Venus Von Jet out there jamming.
The jam will go the remaining 16 seconds.
Jammer knew there with both jammers now getting that cut track. That means the jam's going to go over full 2 minutes now.
5 again.
And Venus Von Jet picking up another 5 points, matching the Lumberjacks.
So far, I don't think that Venus Von Jet will have time to get back into the pack. Any points collected before penalized? Yes, Sniper's got 2 more. So still a win on the jam for the Lumbersmacks, but not as much as they had hoped for. And we're going to have a power start for Happy Valley.
16:56 to go, 162 for the Lumbersmacks and Molly Morbids at 83.
Team timeout called by Happy Valley. That stops the clock at 16 minutes and 50 seconds. Each team has 3 timeouts. They can be called between jams. They stop the clock for 60 seconds. This is the first timeout called during the course of this game. Each team also has 1 official review per period. And if they win their first official review and change the minds of the officials, they're rewarded by getting their official review back.
Right.
That trick only works once, though.
Yes.
So a huddle over there by the jammer line by the Happy Valley team. And I see, break out my trusty binoculars here. And I see that wearing the jammer star is number 1057 Thrasher. So I predict she will be the next jammer for Happy Valley. Sniper's already standing in the penalty box, meaning she'll re-enter shortly. Remember to click that donate button for ColoradoSports.TV.
It's that pretty red one in the corner.
Anything you can do to defray our operating costs is greatly appreciated.
And if you happen to come out sometime today or even tomorrow, you need to go see Derby Supply, high altitude. They're located in Colorado Springs, but they've got a beautiful booth here. And their very first overall MVP.
Thrasher ran right up the inside line, through first, lead jammer for Happy Valley, in the pink, in the white, Muddy River Rollers.
Sniperess is back on the track.
Thrasher calls it 4 points.
Happy Valley can get the only points in that jam. Looks like 4. That brings them up to 87.
So still a very significant lead for the Lumbersmacks with 16 minutes to go in the game. Very much an uphill climb for the Molly Morbids. Now hoping for a moral victory by at least keeping it close.
Just woken up, and this has been such an exciting and fast-paced game. This is the first game I've seen at Mayday where the packs have been sprinting, and they did it twice in a row.
Number 47, Smashy, with a star out for lead for Happy Valley.
Looks like the Juker is jamming for Happy Valley. Got recycled back, still making her initial pass.
But now
It still feels like Muddy River is on the, shall we say, the low side of the penalty equation, as we've seen a lot of short packs for them. They're able, nevertheless, to hang on for the points.
Yeah, Vernon Rubber was just about to come out of the penalty box when the jam was called off.
3 points for Smashy, calling it.
Physically get her skates in front of them to get through, and was only able to get 3 points there.
Smashy and Tootsie Valentino now tied for a number of jams at 11 jams apiece. Tootsie Valentino with a few more points on the board. She's the high scorer for Muddy River with 76 by my unofficial count. Valkyrie Vixen has 32 for Happy Valley.
Tootsie Valentino jamming for Muddy River.
Hip Knocket Therapy for Happy Valley. 5-on-5 on the track.
And it's Tootsie Valentino that takes lead jam, but not far behind is Hip Knocket Therapy.
Happy Valley blockers not able to get all the way up to the top of the pack. All 4 points collected by Tootsie, as she calls it. That was fairly impressive work.
Yes. So now the Lumbersmacks 169, Molly Morbids 87. We're more than halfway through period 2.
That was some amazing skating there as she came around those 2 turns and managed to pick up those 4 points. And right as Hip Knocket Therapy was coming in to the pack. As Valkyrie Vixen now out on the jammer line.
So these are the last pool games for these teams. This afternoon, all of the teams will be seeded into the knockout bracket. And on track to go 3-0, I expect Muddy River to be in the top 4 from their pool.
Sniperess is our lead jammer for Muddy River. Valkyrie Vixen is the jammer for Happy Valley.
Sniperess calls it off as Vixen approaches, did collect all 4.
And here we're seeing where Happy Valley able to get.
In the first half, it was 3 points at the time. Now it looks like it's 4 points at the time.
In those jams, but doesn't feel like
But they're the Lumbersmacks are kind of moving away now from Molly Morbids, kind of opening up that gap.
In fact, the Muddy River jammers more effective at earning lead in the second period than in the first. They've got 77% of the lead calls in this second period.
Thrasher is jamming for Happy Valley.
And Smashy for Muddy River. Through and lead.
No pack called, and they had to let Smashy go.
Thrasher still working on getting through the pack, but she beats the one on the outside.
See, that's what's been keeping Muddy River to these one-pass jams. So it's a way to stem the bleeding a little bit, but as I said, if you consistently get those 4-point jams in your favor, it doesn't matter that they're only a few points per jam. 3 for Smashy, calling it off. And they have now officially doubled up on the Molly Morbids. 176 to 87 with 11.5 to go in the game.
That's a bit of a change-up for them as well. I don't know if she jammed already in this game.
Yeah, she has jammed a few times already.
That's the thing about where our seats are positioned. The jammers are entirely concealed behind the blockers until they come around. Tootsie Valentino, number 8 with the star. And I think this is only Venus Von Jet's second turn with the star for Happy Valley.
Happy Valley hitting that back wall. Trying to make sure Tootsie Valentino doesn't make it through.
Third.
Having the stretch, having to recycle back almost to corner 2.
You can see this on the polished.
Tootsie Valentino getting recycled to the back of the pack.
Watching the jam refs for the point signal. 2.
Indeed, and I've heard skaters say that they find that slight differences between track 1 and 2. So, although you may be able to do something, ability-wise in track 1, you might
Tootsie Valentino pleading her case for more points. Still 2.
You can ask, but you may not receive.
That's number 50, Sniperess for Muddy River. She is our lead jammer.
Powering through the pack. Number 00, the Juker, taking to the outside, but not yet clear of the pack.
And the Juker still working through 2 of the blockers for Muddy River. Oh.
Ooh, a penalty on the Juker. It's a forearm penalty.
So Sniperess is on a power jam. She picks up 5 points.
All 4 blockers for Happy Valley are on the track.
All 4 blockers for Muddy River are even on the track.
Sniperess is knocked to the infield, stays out of bounds so that she doesn't earn the track cutting penalty, which is what happens when you improve your position relative to your opponents while you are out of bounds.
There she goes. She makes it through the pack, picking up 5 more points, another grand slam.
Power jam over now, though, with the Juker back on the track.
Aha.
And through the pack.
Yes. Smashy gets through the pack. One last time. Sniperess gets through the pack one last time, excuse me. Picking up 4 points.
And calling it off.
14 points for Sniperess on that jam. 8.5 minutes to go. The Lumbersmacks at 192. The Molly Morbids 87.
So, as I mentioned before, official timeout called, stopping the clock at 8 minutes and 29 seconds. Checking in with, apparently that last pass was to be a 5-point pass, as the scoreboard has been adjusted.
Hey folks, also big thanks to the Slaughterhouse Girls for hosting Mayday Mayhem. This is their 5th year.
So as we were saying earlier, with the on track to come out with a 3-0 record, we expect that Muddy River Rollers will end up in the top part of their pool and proceed on into bracketed play. The 3 lower finishers from each pool will play against each other just in pairs to see how people place in that range. We don't yet know where the Molly Morbids will fall out.
Smashy jamming for Muddy River. And with the forearms, she will be heading to the penalty box.
For Happy Valley, a forearm now being called on Lumbersmacks, and that was
I think that's number 503, Hypnotic Therapy, with the star.
She's our lead jammer. They had to let her go.
Status for Hypnotic Therapy now as a
yes, Hypnotic Therapy.
Lumberjacks go to the penalty bench. This is when we really see Happy Valley able to put penalty points up on the board, but there's just one blocker out.
5 power points for Hypnotic Therapy, number 503 from the Happy Valley Derby Darlings. Visiting from Utah County, Utah, the Muddy River Rollers are down from Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada.
Looks like we have a blocker down on the track.
We've got our staff looking at that blocker. So, once again, today is the second day of the 2015 Mayday Mayhem tournament. 5th annual tournament hosted by the Slaughterhouse Derby Girls out of Greeley, Colorado. We have our blocker standing back up under her own power.
Looks like she's going to be okay.
They're going to continue to look at that Muddy River blocker, but she did get up and off the track.
From here, that would appear to be number 619, Billy the Shiv. Score after the last jam, 97 on the board for the Molly Morbids from Happy Valley as they picked up 10 unanswered points. .193 to 97, 7 minutes and 38 seconds to go.
10 more of those and the Molly Morbids are right back in it.
And she is through for lead.
That's a good start. Valkyrie Vixen with the star for Happy Valley, through and lead. 47, Smashy jamming for Muddy River.
Valkyrie hoping to keep through on the inside at 1 or 2.
Smashy's still working her way through the initial pass.
Muddy River's pivot, burn and rubber back out from the penalty box. 4 points awarded to Valkyrie Vixen on that pass.
Yeah, number 42,
Smashy breaks out.
Got a little too far out and had to let her go.
Vixen back into the pack, pushed into the outfield, calls it off. She successfully passed 3 of her opponents.
193, so close to that 200 mark.
So there's 7 more points for the Molly Morbids, getting them to 104. Lumbersmacks out 193. 6.5 minutes left in the game.
3 of 4, and here's the 4. We had still a really short hands.
It wouldn't take long for the Molly Morbids to be right back up there with the Lumbersmacks.
But with only 6 minutes, time for, I'd say, between 3 to 5 jams, depending. You know, that probably is not going to do it. But they're on track. You know, there's the Juker through the pack. Lead jammer for Happy Valley. Tootsie Valentino with a star for the Muddy River skaters. And number 111, Knocker Walker, the pivot for Muddy River, to the penalty box with a misconduct penalty. However, a back block picked up by the Juker, putting an end to her lead status and sending her to the penalty box. Tootsie Valentino pushed into the infield, manages to avoid the track cutting penalty.
Back around she goes. Tootsie Valentino looking to score some points. Oh.
If there are lead jammers, situations usually take it to where
she gets 5 of them.
A few seconds left there before the jam gets called off.
5 points on the board for
Kate Shamrocker for Muddy River heading to the penalty box. Whoa, a big hit from Knocker Walker.
Wham Bam Julianne just tossed into the outfield there. 5 more for Tootsie Valentino. The Juker completes her earlier scoring pass for 4. Power jam now over.
Picking up 4 points for Happy Valley as well. And that takes Lumbersmacks now.
30 seconds remain in the jam. Both jammers at the back of the pack. Box blocker number 0, not making it easy for the Juker. She's now pushed into the infield and has to recycle.
And now to the outside and recycled by Knocker Walker.
Between Knocker Walker, box blocker, and Velvet Stalker, there's a potential for a poem there, I think. 3 points picked up by the Juker. No additional points for, four final points for Tootsie Valentino. 14-7 on the jam. 207 to 111 with 4 minutes to go. An official review called now by the Lumbersmacks. So that stops the clock at 3 minutes and 54 seconds. A recent rule clarification by the Women's Flat Track Derby Association allows that official review to be used as effectively a 4th timeout if that's deemed to be the best use of it by that team. Previously, we've seen some fairly creative reasons for official reviews effectively producing that effect, and they decided, oh, let's just make it okay to do that.
No more hiding. We'll just let you do it.
So this is the final game of pool play for each of these teams, so we can't predict when they will next play in the bracket. Coming up next on this track at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, well, that's in 12 minutes, so it might be a little bit later than that. But we're going to be seeing a men's roller derby association game with the San Diego Aftershock playing Uinta Madness, currently an amalgam of Utah and Idaho teams.
They were at Mayday Mayhem last year.
So men's roller derby action coming up next on this track.
Just a very well done tournament representing Colorado and roller derby very well.
We have two other men's games here on track 1 at 2:30 p.m. Mountain Time, at 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Those will feature the San Diego Aftershock playing Denver Roller Derby's Ground Control at 2:30, and then Ground Control will take on Uinta Madness at 5:30. That will be interspersed with the bracket play coming out of the Women's Flat Track Derby Association side of the house. There is a page linked on the Mayday Mayhem Facebook page that will give you an indication of who will be playing who. Stay tuned to that. So we just heard about the official review. The contention was that the Happy Valley, one of the Happy Valley skaters coming into the penalty box, there's a rule where you can't come in too hot and like move the chairs or endanger the officials that are there.
Right.
The contention was that that had happened. That can be a gross misconduct call and can actually result in you being expelled from the game. But the officials determined that did not occur, so the official review will not be retained. Back to action on the track, clock ticking down from the 4-minute mark.
That's number 50, Sniperess, jamming for Muddy River.
10:57 Thrasher with a star for Happy Valley.
And the Muddy River Sniperess is our lead jammer.
Thrasher about 10, 20, 30 feet behind.
Big hit by Cookie on burner rubber.
Happy Valley blockers trying to get up to the top of the pack to make it difficult for Sniperess to score. And they successfully held her to 1 point.
The knee slides all the way out to the ends of the tape, and the real reason for the suicide seating is evident.
Ticking past the 3-minute mark remaining in the game.
Makes it real difficult for that jammer to catch up with the pack when it's so fast.
Hypnotic therapy now on the jammer line for Happy Valley.
Number 503, Hypnotic Therapy, going to jam in the pink for Happy Valley. I think that's Tootsie Valentino out there for Muddy River.
Hypnotic Therapy is our lead jammer for Happy Valley.
Happy Valley has taken 4 out of the last 5 lead calls in the game.
Happy Valley played against them.
They're certainly making a statement that they are no pushovers.
Tootsie Valentino ready to make some points too. Hypnotic Therapy just knocked to the inside, being recycled to the back of the pack.
So both jammers into the pack for points.
Announcing there.
Box blocker had a great shoulder check.
Tootsie just pushing at the front, 1 blocker to beat. Now that's 2 blockers. Now that's 3 blockers. The Happy Valley blockers coming up and doing a good job containing her. 4 for Hypnotic Therapy as she completes her scoring pass. She wants more points. And she's getting them.
Happy Valley blockers are really holding back Tootsie Valentino.
That should be a grand slam. Yes, it is. All 5 points for hypnotherapy.
Skating like she stole something, so Derby Supply High Altitude, you might want to check your inventory.
Tootsie Valentino knocked to the outside. A little slow in getting up. Recycle to the back of the pack.
Hypnotherapy calls it off. Did successfully earn 5 more, holding Tootsie Valentino to 4 points and a single scoring pass on that jam. There is enough time for at least one more jam, probably only one more jam, but a 14-4 win for the Molly Morbids, knocking the Lumbersmacks lead back down to 87 points, 212 to 125. Little cheer from the Happy Valley bench for their skaters on the track. Smashy takes the final star of the game for Muddy River and Isley Jammer.
And getting through is Valkyrie Vixen for Happy Valley.
Happy Valley racing the pack. One of their blockers hung back to try and impede Smashy. Didn't quite work. That was number 12, Cookie. 3 final points for Muddy River as Smashy calls it off. Period clock has expired. Our unofficial final, 215 to 125. So the game wound up looking a bit more like I expected it to going in. The first period was, to my mind, a strong statement by Happy Valley that no, we belong in the higher ranks of the WFTDA. And even as I mentioned at the end, a bit of a statement from Happy Valley saying, you don't get to do whatever you want. We're going to take a little bit of control of this game.
Yeah, Happy Valley made a really good game of it that first half. Tried to come back at the end of the second half. Not quite enough. So the Lumbersmacks win 215 to the Molly Morbids 125.
Happy Valley putting up a London bridge to congratulate their opponents. We also see the men's teams for the next game on this track congratulating the Muddy River Rollers Lumbersmacks out of Moncton, New Brunswick, California. They end up going 3-0 on the first 2 days of the tournament. I expect that will seed them into the top 4 for their pool, and we don't yet know where they will be placed in the knockout bracket. You can find out by watching on the Mayday Mayhem Facebook page. Now we're going to send the Molly Morbids from the Happy Valley Derby Darlings coming out from Utah County, Utah on their consolation lap.
And the first game of day 2 of Mayday Mayhem is in the books on track 1.
Thank you for joining us on ColoradoSports.TV. Please consider clicking the donate button. We've got coverage on both tracks of Mayday Mayhem all day today and tomorrow through the final game, which will take place at 2:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. I have been Mark Bradford, also known as Brad Example.
And I'm Screamin' Mimi.
Thanks for joining us.